everyone, and welcome to Apollo's Odyssey. I have a very special guest with us tonight, and I'm really excited for tonight's show. I'm going to bring him on here in a second, but tonight's show we're going to be talking about the Jedis and the real Jedis that what Star Wars copied off of. So really excited about this. It's going to be a very interesting show, but before I bring our guest on, who is a longtime friend of mine, I have some more items left up on my show here, I'm sorry, my store, and that is I have two Shaman Spears staves. One is my Patriot staff, which is pretty sweet, and then I have a few Orgonite pyramids left, and I have tons of these necklaces. So I really like these initiation key necklaces. They're Orgonite. I made them myself. They have moldavite pieces and crushed fluorite in them, and they're all backed with a quartz crystal. And no two of these are the same. They're all completely different kind of designs. So I'm really excited about this one, having these up there, because initiation keys, like the concept of it, is really interesting to me, because I feel like on my show, whenever I have people on, it's like I feel like I have keys in me, and then my guests have keys in them, and we kind of like bring them out of each other, and it's really interesting. So that's kind of the idea I got for putting these up there. So go to shamanspears.com and check that out. It's like the ticker at the bottom of the screen. I also have these really sweet Orgonite dagger necklaces. They have tourmaline and quartz in them, so those are really sweet too. So make sure you go check those out. And I have two Orgonite brass knuckles left, in case you really want to knock some love and light into someone. So yeah, really excited to have these up. And my new Shaman Spears collection is very close to being finished. It should be up probably by this weekend, or a little later in the weekend. So I'm really excited about that as well. And it's really important that I sell the art on my site, because YouTube is taking all my money and not letting me have it at the moment. I'm not sure what's going on with that. All my donations are, so I've been posting donation links actually to get that going for everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and post that now again, because for some reason YouTube isn't really giving me my donation links, so I don't know what's going on with that. But so if you would like to donate to my show, please go buy my art or click on the links over here. And YouTube will probably eventually give me my donations, but still working it out. So I'm going to bring the guest on here. Hopefully he has everything worked out on his end. Andrei, still working out the audio. Oh,
how's it going?
It's pretty good. Long time no see. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's nice to see you. Congratulations on your show.
Thanks. It's taken a long time to get together, but I think it's going pretty well. It's really starting to kind of blow up. YouTube's kind of being bastards and taking a lot of my money at the moment, but hopefully...
Yeah, I heard. We'll use your brass knuckles on them.
Yeah. I'm going to knock some love and light into them with these.
I love that. Knock some love and light into them. Love it.
Wow, it's so good to see you. It's been way too long. Mm-hmm. So to my audience here, me and Andrei have had a bit of an interesting past. We met working at... We actually met when I was selling my spears. At a... Oh, that's really loud. What was it? We met at that burner event, Cosmic Carnival.
Yeah, that burner event.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a really interesting story. So I volunteered for this event. It was like in the mountains in California, and so I'm asked, someone comes up to me and they're like, "Hey, we need you to build a pyramid." I'm like, "Well, I've never built a pyramid before. I'm not sure if I can." And I think it was Ariane told me, like, she came up like all stressed out. She's like, "I need someone to build this pyramid right now. I need you to go build it. Can you build a pyramid?" I'm just like, I never built a pyramid before, but I don't know, maybe I can figure it out. And then Andrei here comes up with like all these like poles and everything, and he's like, okay, like, let's get to work. And then he runs off. And so I'm sitting there waiting for him, and he never comes back. And like Lola comes up, and she's like, I really need, this is like where I'm going to be meditating. I really need this built for me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, okay, I need to just build this, I guess. And I ended up building this pyramid, and it ended up working out. It was really cool.
It worked out. You did a great job for your first pyramid. It looked great.
Yeah, and I don't think I didn't see you for the rest of the event, and then I ended up meeting you at Imran.
I had 4 stages to run, yeah.
Yeah, but later on, we start running all these events in Malibu together, and those were some very interesting times. They're kind of these like Dionysian, wild soirees.
Bringing out people's true avatars.
So Andrei here is a very metaphysically powerful person, and I've definitely learned a lot from him. And can you tell me a little bit, or the audience a little bit, about your bio, your background here, in case they haven't read the description yet?
Show notes? Well, like a lot of people, I saw Star Wars, and I was really inspired by it. There was this little voice inside of me that kept saying, there's more to this, dig deeper. It's not just fiction. There's a ring of truth to this. And my whole life, basically, like a lot of diverging areas, but it's all been about tracking down the real life Jedi. I started out with martial arts, went with my teacher to Japan to meet his teacher. That got me into Zen Buddhism. I studied with the monks for a little bit. I went to Tibet. I got into meditation and then Tantra, energy healing, and just my whole life has been about proving this stuff is real. And then I found Egypt, and I found the proof. And you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. There's, for those that don't know, there was an actual order of wizard monks, that's how they're described in the texts, who called themselves the Jedi. And this isn't speculation, this isn't up for debate. There's an actual document called the Westcar Papyrus that describes Jedi wizards performing miracles in the Pharaoh's court. And it also, by the way, names a particular Jedi wizard as designing the Great Pyramid. So it's a very real thing. It's actually written down and documented. It's in the British Museum for anybody to see. If you can read Egyptian, of course. But yeah, Westcar Papyrus, for anybody that's curious, you can Google it.
So what exactly did they learn in this order? It's called was it actually called the Jedi Order?
Not an order per se, they were called Jedi. You see, the Jedi, you find this all throughout Egyptian art, architecture. The Jedi is basically a pillar. It's a very distinct pillar, though. You can always tell them. They come in different shapes and sizes. And I don't know if you've got your slides ready, but I have a couple examples. But they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, but the one thing they all have in common is that there's always 4 notches. No more, no less, there's always 4. Whether it's a giant pillar outside or, on a temple wall somewhere inscribed, there will always be 4 notches. Now, Egyptian mystery schools, though, as you know, there's an inner and an outer school. Everything always has an inner and an outer meaning. So if you have 4 notches, how many spaces do you have between them? You have 3, right?
3.
Right. So altogether, it's not 4, it's actually 7. The magic number that they're trying to draw your attention to is 7. The Jedi pillar is also known as the spine of Osiris. So they're really not leaving anything up to chance. A spine with 7 steps on it. What could they possibly be referring to? They're referring to your 7 chakras and Kundalini energy steadily rising up them. So that's the Jedi. Yeah, you can see some examples there. That's the Jedi. A Jedi is simply one who walks with or one who carries. So somebody with a fully activated 7-step pillar. Somebody with fully open, activated chakras, able to circulate energy through their body, build it up, send it out to the point that they can affect the outside world. That's a Jedi in a nutshell. Pretty cool, huh?
Really interesting. Yeah. So what exactly were the pillars used for?
Raising energy. Here again, There's the esoteric meaning and the external meaning. There's one slide in particular that shows electrical devices on top of it. It's really interesting how we came to this idea that the pyramids were tombs, because there was never actually any mummies found inside. The mummies are found in the tombs surrounding them, the smaller structures around Giza and all over the plain. The pyramids have what we call a sarcophagus, but it wasn't necessarily dead people that laid inside of it. In fact, the Russians did a really interesting experiment. They took some apples and put some inside the sarcophagus and some on the floor next to it. And they came back to check on them in a week or two. And guess what? You know, you've been there. It's a little moldy, a little damp. You can guess what the ones on the floor looked like. The ones inside the sarcophagus looked brand new. They didn't age a day. And we know that the pyramids were energy generators of sorts. Nikola Tesla used the same principle, actually. If you have the right conditions, if you have an underground river lined with quartz crystals and water's flowing there constantly banging against the wall, when pressure hits quartz, it generates an electrical charge. So you have to find just the right conditions in the ground. This is what Tesla did with his tower. You find exactly the right conditions, stick a metal rod in that's conductive, and you're literally pulling electricity for free out of the ground. Now, the Egyptians weren't idiots like we are. Why build a huge structure only for one purpose? They didn't just generate electricity. They didn't just transmit it. Tesla also proved you can send electricity through the air like radio. But if you've got that current going through there, why not lay inside there and get charged up while you're at it? They were, and here again, we have documents that confirm this, they were literally initiation chambers as well as power generators.
I actually had the pleasure of laying in one when I was in Egypt. And this is before I found out about that. I didn't know about what they were actually used for. And this was a pyramid in, or was it a tomb under a pyramid in, what was it? Saqqara, that's where it was. So it was near Saqqara, not exactly Saqqara, but it was very close to there. And I actually, so this room, this tomb, it had stars all over the ceiling. And from what I've learned later after coming back, is that the tombs with the stars carved all over the ceilings were the ones that were especially used for that. Exactly. And so the whole group is in there. I'm with this whole tour group, and then they all leave. And me and the person I was with, we were kind of like dressed Egyptian the whole time we were there. And I think a lot of the Egyptians really appreciated it because it was like we were trying to like fit in with their culture. So, you know, they would always kind of like have us like take us to do like other things on the side, like after the group would like leave. So the rest of the group walks away and we kind of hang behind. And this like guardian of this tomb is like, hey, come over here. And he's like, you want to get in that? And he looks over at the open sarcophagus, and I'm like, heck yeah. So I get in, and I actually have a photo of this. I wish I would have pulled it up for this show, but as soon as I lay in it, like literally I just felt my consciousness just go whew. Like it was just like the most insane energy. And it freaked me out so much because I didn't know about this. I just thought it was like, you know, like a coffin. And as soon as that happened, I jumped out of it. And I was like, what the hell was that?
So you've experienced it firsthand.
Yeah.
The initiation for a pharaoh before they could ascend to the throne was to lay in one of these sarcophagi, astral project their soul out of their body and into space, merge their consciousness with that of a star. Yes, the Egyptians believed every star was conscious. Merge their consciousness with a star, find his way back to his body on Earth, and only then would he be qualified to be pharaoh. So what you experience jumping out of your body, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. Now imagine, you know, they're acoustically resonant chambers too. Now imagine the effect is amplified by playing exactly the right frequencies and tones at the same time. You wouldn't just jump out momentarily and a few feet outside of your body, you'd be in orbit. Yeah, exactly. You've experienced it. So everybody listening, this isn't legend, this isn't mythology. You were there, you laid in one. You saw what
I didn't
happens
even
after a few
know
seconds.
about this when it happened to me, and yeah, I was like, okay, like I felt that. I knew what happened in those after that, but
Hmm.
yeah, that
So the
was
way
very
archaeologists arrived at this whole stupid tomb idea, they they found that there's no soot marks on the ceiling, and they concluded if there's no soot marks, there's no torches. If there's no torches, nobody ever went inside. Why would you build such a huge structure and never go inside? Must be a tomb.
all the tubes are in
Or
the Valley of the Kings.
right, or they had electricity and didn't need torches. And we have depictions. I mean, we have depictions on the wall of things that look very much like a light bulb, and right under them, you see a Djed pillar powering them. So
I actually took photos of that myself in Egypt. Let me go ahead and pull that up here.
you did, and there's actually one photo in particular that I'm going to touch on. But show the one, if you would, of the light bulbs, if you have it handy.
That is in the Temple of Dendura, or in Dendura, which is the Temple of Hathor.
Yes.
I don't know if you sent me photos. I never saw that you had sent me photos.
Should be.
Sorry about that. I was looking at
worries.
my email and I didn't see any.
I thought I did, but let me double check, make sure it didn't bounce back.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and show the audience here.
Yeah, it should be. Oh, there we go. There we go. Yeah. So as you can see, go ahead.
So this is actually in the walls in the Temple of Hathor, which is, they call it Dendura. The temple is called Dendura, but you can see it looks like there's a Baghdad battery powering it, and this is the Djed pillar that Andrei was talking about here.
Powering the thing, exactly.
Yeah. And what is this? This looks like a reptilian type person. Some
One
like
of the
smaller
star people that
some
was
are giants.
Mm-hmm. We see giants depicted. We see aliens of all sorts. We know Osiris had green skin, for example. We know the cat goddess Bastet, right? We know she was probably from Lyra. I mean, most of the alien species that people have identified now, the Egyptians have a god for. And they've depicted them. Now, either they had wild, crazy imaginations, or they were just documenting what was going on at the time.
Yeah, in my travels there, I noticed that Osiris is depicted green everywhere, all over the place. And he's like, the most ancient god, there. And the Temple of Osiris, that was a very interesting place. But I want to touch a little more on Dendura, the Temple of Hathor here, because there was some other interesting things I experienced there. And, apparently they say that was it was a very powerful place for the mystery schools. And I believe it was a lot to do with the priestesshood, where, they did work with energetic tantric type practices, from my understanding. And so that was the most interesting one, because it had light bulbs depicted actually in several places throughout it. And what was also interesting to me is I want to show everyone this here, but the outside of the temple has these giant, I mean, you can't even tell how big this is by looking at it, but this is on the outside of the temple, and there's these giant depictions of these pharaohs with these little scepters. And Andrei, I'm wondering if you, by any chance, know what these scepters are, what they were used for, because I was very curious. I feel like they're not just like a symbolic thing. Like, I feel like they must have been used as some sort of energy device. And
you're precisely correct. Yeah.
Some
of the pyramids and a few of the temples, you'll notice that there's holes in the floor. That's not just natural erosion. That's literally what the priests would do during ceremony, is stick the pole in a certain hole, hold the top of it, and absorb energy. Absolutely. Your intuition is spot on. So the Djed pillar, externally, they're powering devices. They're what power these electronical devices. And internally, the Djed pillar is your own spine that powers you. If you have it handy, some people might be thinking ancient Egypt, electricity, like I'm not quite buying it. Like these were primitive people, right? They wore sarongs and like cut wheat in the field. Do you have your picture that you sent me of the doorway to the Temple of Abagos? Do you have that one handy? Because Ancient Aliens, those of you that watch Ancient Aliens will recognize this right away, but there's something that they don't show enough of it on Ancient Aliens that I didn't realize till you showed me your picture.
Oh, of the entrance to the Temple of Abydos. I would have to go through to find it.
Okay, let's see who gets there first. I might have it handy. I resent the email to you too. I don't know if you have your email handy. But
did you send it to me in the email?
I did. Okay. But I have it pretty handy. I don't know how well it'll come across on the camera, but I can certainly try.
Let me pull it back up here.
Here's one while I have it, like we were talking about. I don't know if the camera will pick it up. You see the Djed pillars come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, but it's always 4 with 3 spaces in the middle. That's the distinguishing quality. The rest depends what era of time, what dynasty, but the one consistent thing is it's always 4. And you see it like on big architecture too. See, it's always 4. Or now that we know how to read the inner meaning, 7. It's always 7. But let me find Abagos, because there's something that Ancient Aliens never showed that your picture shows really well.
Is it this photo with the pillars here?
No, it's the flying machines.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm not finding that in your photos here, but let me...
Yeah, here we go. I'll try to position it so everybody can see it. So if you're thinking light bulbs were too much for these primitive people, here's their flying machines, okay? Now, Ancient Aliens cuts it off too close. What I saw in your photo that they never showed, do you see what's right next to all the flying machines? There's a giant bee. You see that?
Yeah. Is that
So next time we see Giorgio and all those guys, we can teach them something. The reason there's a bee there.
Okay, I have it here.
You have it? Cool. Maybe folks can get a better, clearer view. So Ancient Aliens always shows the flying machines, which in and of itself is pretty phenomenal, right? These primitive people were flying around in helicopters and things that look a lot more advanced than our flying machines.
It's like, what else could that be for that time? I mean, come on.
Nothing else. But if you go a little bit to the left, there's this giant bee or some kind of insect. Now, bees are really interesting in that they break all laws of aerodynamics. The wings are simply too small to generate enough lift for that body. According to all laws of lift and aerodynamic, a bee shouldn't fly. That's because a bee doesn't fly using lift the way a bird's wings does. Its wings flap really, really fast, and they create a bubble of frequency around them. Nassim Haramein always talks about gravity being more like a wave than a force. Okay? If it's a wave, then it's got all the properties of a wave, same as audio. So if you can have noise-canceling headphones, you hit exactly the right frequency, you can have gravity canceling. It works on the same principle. So the Egyptians in that inscription are literally telling us, if you want to fly like us, don't copy the bird, copy the bee. It's a much more efficient method of flight. So that's the real meaning of the Abagos inscription. It's not just, hey, proof that there were flying machines or that we had visitors, but here's how you build them. Mimic the way a bee flies.
Wow, very interesting. So was there some other photos from this slide here you wanted me to pull up that you were talking about earlier? Sorry, I'm just seeing these now.
There's a good one. If you scroll down, the black and white one of the pyramid, right there, right on the left-hand side. So this was a shot that, if you know Siemens, the medical company out of Germany, they make MRI machines and stuff. The founder of Siemens, Dr. Siemens, he took this picture in the 1960s in infrared. Now, this is what the pyramids are doing now in their decrepit state, right? Thousands upon thousands of years of erosion. They're missing the gold caps that used to be at the top for conductivity, and they're still doing that. And you see the column also rising through the middle of the pyramid. So that's what you laid it, and that's what you felt. You literally were lifted up by that current.
And all pyramids usually have an intersection of at least 3 underground rivers, correct? Like Larry Dean Hunter's work really blew.
He's amazing.
Away. Yeah. I hope to see him again someday.
Mm-hmm. No, he's amazing. I love his stuff. We were actually planning to go to Egypt together. Like, he's got the access and the know-how to prove some of these theories. And we were going to put him to the test. Like, you know how they have now for music studios room modeling software? Like, in the old days, you would hang foam on your walls. You would acoustically treat a room. You don't need to do that anymore. Now you can do it all in software. So you just hang a microphone. It makes a bunch of beeps, measures how the sound bounces around, and it could put the foam on your walls for you. So we were actually going to go and literally acoustically model the pyramid. So then we can, then we don't need access time to the pyramid. We can sit in our normal room at home, play different sounds through, and we would hear exactly what it would sound like bouncing in within the walls of the pyramid using this room modeling software. And some really neat stuff actually comes out. It's when I heard him playing some of the recordings. Now, he's in the King's Chamber just goofing off, saying all sorts of silly stuff and listening to the echo. But the thing is, I've heard that specific echo before. We use it a lot with tuning forks for tuning the chakras. You know, like the musical scale, C, D, E, F, G. You're a musician, you know. If you play a C and an E, it sounds great. If you play an A and a C, it sounds great. As long as you use thirds and fifths, you can play anything you want and it'll sound brilliant. Don't play a fourth. You can't play, you know, a C and a D. You don't want to play an A and a D. 2 notes close together, too far apart will be a discord. You don't want to do that in music. But if you take an A tuning fork and a D tuning fork, hit them both at the same time, hold one up in each ear, you know the magic of binaural beats. Those 2 frequencies, the dissonance, in hypnosis you exactly want dissonance. Exactly that dissonance triggers astral projection. The dissonance between an A and a D, and that's exactly what the walls create. They distort everything by exactly a fourth. That's basically what Larry and I want to prove.
And the Egyptians and their priestesshoods, they did a lot of work with astral projection. I actually have you read Joan Grant by any chance?
Mm-hmm.
Any of her works? So I've just read all of her books over the past few months. And the Winged Pharaoh really gets into that. It is absolutely mind-blowing. For those out there that don't know who Joan Grant is, she is basically, she actually died like 20 years ago, but she is this writer who basically remembered all of her past lives in clear detail. She was able to recall them. And it was because she was able to do this because she actually had a past life in the Old Kingdom where she went through the priesthood of Anubis. And in the priesthood of Anubis, they learned astral projection where like every night she would basically do all this work in the dream state, and it was like basically part of her like job, like, and then she ended up becoming a pharaoh later, what they called a winged pharaoh. And I actually have talked about this a lot on my other shows, but I really found it fascinating because if you look at all of her books and all the work she's done, because she learned that in that life, it kind of stuck with her in her other lives. So she would always be able to leave her body during the dream state and then be able to recall it. And I think, you know, we all leave our bodies during the dream state, but it's the idea of being able to recall it in the morning, being able to do like dream recall, which is what basically that's kind of more what she learned, was being able to recall her dreams every morning. So she would have to, as soon as she woke up, there would be a scribe that would be waiting to write down everything she had learned. And she, usually the priest would give her like
just like Edgar Cayce in modern times.
Yeah, and that's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. It's like, you know, what kind of work are we doing when we're in that state every night, you know? And I think, you know, even
the real work,
remember it.
The real work. The Aborigines call this the dream time, and they say when you go to sleep, you enter the real world. But yeah, it's about the work. Imagine if you can recall all of your past lives. The power, the knowledge that you would accumulate with lifetimes, not just one lifetime of experience. One of the things that I saw written, I mean, not in the Jedi text, because, well, other than the Westcar Papyrus, there's none that survived today, but in some of the Templar texts. And this is why I think there's a direct connection between the two, because the same exercises that the Jedi are depicted doing are exactly what they teach us in the Templar Order. I mean, it's literally the same, point for point. So you ask me what the Jedi do, they literally, exactly like Star Wars, right? There's a force that surrounds all living things, binds them together, right? Literally, it's learning to feel and communicate with this force. Absorb it into you, charge yourself up, use it for things like astral projection, use it for things like keeping the world in balance. Now, you know the idea of like reincarnation and karma, like you might be rich in one lifetime, you might be poor in another one. All the time, alien girl. I'll touch on that in a moment. All the time. That's part of why Apolla and I are such good friends. Because even though the first time I met her, I recognized her instantly. Because that's what I'm doing. I'm traveling all over the world reuniting my tribe. So absolutely, people that I've met and worked with in past lives, it's like an energy thing. You know them at first sight. You feel them like an old familiar friend or a relative. Absolutely. You were asking how? Feeling. That's just it. If you meet someone for the first time and they feel familiar, it's not your imagination, they probably are. So one thing that I saw written in the Templar text is that this whole idea of karma, seeing life from different perspectives, that's true for most people. That's how the universe learns about itself. If you're a member of the Jedi Order, the Templar Knights, or the female counterparts, the Sisterhood of the Rose, you do the same thing every lifetime. The goal is not to experience different things. The goal is to amass as much experience as you can to be the best at what you do, because you've got a really serious job, keeping the world in balance. Here again, just like Star Wars, bringing balance to the Force. That's the purpose of the Jedi. You master the Force in order to keep it in balance. And even when things seem like really chaotic as they do in our modern times, they're not chaotic. They're readjusting. It's a necessary phase before we get to the next step. And sometimes adjustments get a little crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely been feeling that over the past year and a half here. It's been a crazy ride for sure. And the Schumann resonance has been spiking like crazy.
Absolutely. Because it responds to us. And this is part of what I want to touch on tonight. You might be in a bad mood. Oh, I feel like crap. It's not just yourself that you're damaging. These are like the closely guarded secrets that the Templars have kept secret for so long. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. They keep this stuff secret because they worry about it falling into the wrong hands. It's already fallen into the wrong hands. Just look around you. What we need to do is make as many people as possible aware of this so we can counteract that negative influence. The reason we have so many more hurricanes and more earthquakes, all of this stuff, just watch the news. Look at how much negative energy most people are putting out. The earth feels that. The earth responds to it. This isn't just esoteric theory. The Institute of Noetic Sciences has studied this. The Heart Math Institute has studied this. There's 17 sensors all over the world right now, and they literally are measuring how the vibration of the earth respond to our reactions to world events. They've been doing this since 9/11. There's a clear connection. Absolutely clear connection. And that's one of the most important things that I hope people take away from this show. You've got cause and effect backwards. And we can touch on quantum physics a little bit. I can get into how it works, but literally you've got it backwards. Everybody thinks the outside world is influencing you and you're reacting to it. No, you're creating it.
Yeah.
You're creating it. Absolutely. The inside influences the outside. The war is all happening inside. They're influencing us and they're pulling our strings, but the real war is happening inside. That's what we've got to master, and that's when things will change.
Earlier you mentioned how these events are people kind of being in more a negative mind state, and these like, you know, catastrophic events can sometimes correlate. I've, on the more positive end of that, I've actually seen that meditations, group meditations, seem to affect the everyone on the
Absolutely.
earth in a major way, in a very positive way. And
Absolutely.
that's been tested. There's actually a Disclosure Fest. We've been doing that here in LA, kind of experimenting with that, and it's definitely come with positive results. So I think that's very interesting.
Absolutely. They've done studies on this since the 80s. It's called the Maharishi effect. The first study was in 1983 in Lebanon while the war was going on. They brought in a group of meditators in secret. Nobody knew about it. And they just sat in some warehouse somewhere in a circle visualizing peace together. The fatality rate in the war went down by 76%. And then unfortunately, 2 weeks later, when they finished the experiment, it went up by exactly 76%. They repeated this experiment it was either 1994 or 1998 in Yugoslavia during that conflict. Same thing, the fatality rate dropped by exactly 76%. It's not that they repeated the experiment, they got the same exact results every time. And it's been repeated in Washington, D.C., London. It's a well-studied phenomenon. Here again, it's not theory, it's not up to debate. We're talking science today, not metaphysics. Love always wins. Absolutely. Absolutely, Ji-Chin. That's pretty much the big message, as corny as it may sound. I mean, I don't think it's corny. I'm a big old romantic at heart. But it's literally feel more love, wake up the people around you, remind them how important it is that they feel love. That's how we change the world. That's how we save ourselves and the planet.
And that's what the Force is chi,
exactly.
love energy. It's all kind of like, you know, basically
the Force is just
chi,
an amplifying
force,
effect.
Love energy.
The Force is an amplifying effect, and it's a mirror. It's literally, if you look around and you don't like your life, it's just reflecting back to you what you're feeling on the inside. Literally. Change what's in here, and you will start seeing changes out there. The Force just amplifies and reflects back. So if you're sending out hate and fear all the time, you're going to see more things to hate and fear. And we saw this during the end of 2020, just things just spiraling out of control. Former best friends, you know, arguing with each other. It doesn't matter whose side you were on. You were arguing. They got you. It's as simple as that. Divide and conquer. It's the oldest trick in the book. If you're feeling fear and hate, it's going to get amplified. It's going to get reflected back to you, and everybody else is going to experience it too. If you're feeling love, you have the exact opposite effect. It's like guerrilla warfare. Che Guevara took the island of Cuba with 90 men. He didn't have an army. It was 90 men. Guerrilla warfare is all about taking over the enemy's infrastructure and using it against them. So we have this whole system designed to make people feel more fear. We just take it over and send another signal through those channels. The infrastructure is already there. It's literally psychic guerrilla warfare. That's how we're going to win this thing.
What do you think the Egyptians were using the device? What was their goal with the energy devices they were using? What do you think that they were attempting to amplify or were amplifying? Were they just using it to like power the light bulbs, like, you know, we showed here?
All of the above. All of the above. To light themselves up, to become enlightened, to power the electrical devices, to power their craft. And you see the way the pyramid was shooting that pillar up into space to power things in orbit as well. And that's why there's pyramids, by the way. You know, it's not just Egypt. Cambodia, China, obviously the Mayan pyramids. Pyramids are all over the world, kind of in a diagonal line. It doesn't make much sense unless you figure in the pole shift that happened around the end of the Ice Age. Then what you have is a perfect ring of pyramids all around the former equator. So the sun is always shining somewhere. It was a worldwide grid.
I like what Larry Hunter always says about, he says something like, you blink once, light already circled the planet 8 times.
Yep.
Isn't that, yeah. That's so interesting. So, like, for those of you that don't know his work, it's very interesting because he's an archaeologist in Egypt, and he's done a lot of work with studying the Great Pyramid, and he realized that the sides of the pyramid, they're actually slightly indented with this ratio. So the pyramids don't actually have 4 sides; they have 8 sides. And he kind of like realized like they obviously they used to be sided by white limestone. So he was kind of looking into the idea of them possibly being used as solar panels. Because if you look at it from above, it looks like with the other pyramids near it kind of looks like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like the things that are in your computer, like a circuit board. And basically, like, you know, the sun could reflect this light around all these other pyramids. The light bounces off these pyramids, and then possibly, you know, from what he's saying, what Andrei's saying right here is, you know, they could be reflecting off these pyramids all the way around the world and basically giving free energy to the entire planet. And he actually took the ratio of the indentation on the sides of the Great Pyramid and applied it to these solar panels. So I don't know if anyone here has seen, there's like a field of solar panels outside Vegas. It's kind of between Vegas and LA. And apparently they were all exploding just because like they just had like flat surfaces, and then when the light was hitting them, they were exploding. So he took the ratio and applied the ratio of the indent on the Great Pyramid to the solar panels, and they stopped exploding.
And so suddenly it worked, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Primitive people, right? The biggest mistake, well, science makes 2 big mistakes. They assume that the further back in time you go, the less advanced people were. That's their first mistake. And then the second one is it's the same mistake a little kid makes when, you know, they don't want the monster in their closet to see them, so they hide under the blanket, but never mind the big lump, right? They assume that if you don't see it, it doesn't exist. And Tesla himself said, the moment we start studying non-physical phenomenon, i.e. the force, science will in 1 decade advance further than it has since the beginning of its existence. That was Nikola Tesla.
You know, it's so unfortunate, like science today is like they really try to just focus on physical science, and then they completely discredit metaphysical science, you know, in all of our history books and our science books at school. And really, you know, like you were just saying, I mean, to me, metaphysical science is probably so much important than
absolutely. You know, I was just having this debate with my dad because my dad's in medical research, and I was telling him a little bit about my meditation technique. And there's a Russian poet named Pushkin who has a poem about a cat that walks around a tree. And when he's walking to the left side, he sings songs. When he's walking to the right side, he's writing. Okay? Well, he's not literally talking about a tree and a cat. He's talking about the hemispheres of your brain, right? One is the creative side, one is the logical side. And I'm trying to explain this to my dad, and my dad's like, yeah, but Pushkin's 1800s. We didn't know about the hemispheres of the brain yet. I'm like, Dad, I have an 8,000-year-old Vedic text that tells you when you're meditating with someone, look into their left eye, because that is the, you know, creative and intuitive side of the brain. So don't tell me they didn't know this in the 1800s. You know, they knew this 8,000 years ago. And that's the problem. Scientists ignore what's right in front of them. And then finally they get around to discovering it, and they go, look, you know, look what I've discovered. No, this is old stuff. You've just been ignoring it. You know, and that's basically it. Myself and Larry Dean Hunter and other researchers like us, it's not that we're brilliant. We just don't dismiss stuff as mythology. We look at what they wrote down and we study it. You know, that's basically the difference. We don't dismiss that stuff.
Yeah, you know, it's like, I actually read this occult knowledge book called The Secret History of the World by Mark Booth. I read that probably about maybe 8-9 years ago, and it completely changed the way I thought about things, because this book, it actually went into detail about the way that these mystery schools like viewed things in ancient, like it went from like the early Egyptian mystery schools and then all the way to present day like Freemasons, and basically what they studied and their general concepts of what they believed and what they studied. And totally lost my train of thought here. Oh my god. What was I going to say? What was I talking about before?
What they study.
Before that though. Let's see. I'm sorry, I completely lost my train of thought.
It'll come to you. I was just looking down at what Dodge the Badger wrote. They made the Earth look like a beacon. Yeah. Also, I mean, we see that with the Nazca lines. You know, they don't even make sense until you see them from really, really high up.
Oh, you know? I got it. I remember what I was going to say. Okay, so basically what they were saying was that throughout time to kind of control the people on Earth because, you know, like, it's like, okay, like, one aspect of it is like, okay, why do they feel like they need to control people on Earth? But, you know, there's probably different aspects of this. It has to do with, you know, the ancient aliens, their, you know, what they were doing here and everything like that. But basically, they were saying that it used to be religion was kind of the control method. But recently, in recent years, they are transitioning to science basically being the new form of religion in regards to being a way of kind of controlling humanity. And I think we're really seeing that play out today, you know, in the past year with what's going on in the world health-wise. And, you know, I find that very interesting. It's like, you know, who's to say, you know, these certain scientists aren't a little corrupt that are, you know, coming out with the evidence of what's going on health-wise in the world right now.
There's always a profit motive. Absolutely. There's always a profit motive. And, you know, I don't fault doctors. They're brilliant people. I'm not sure I could finish medical school. You know, I look up to the doctors, but they're trapped within a corrupt system. You know, my ex-wife went through breast cancer, and when chemotherapy started failing her, we healed her using a right frequency device. And her doctor's like, you know, wow, she's doing so much better than all my other patients. I'm like, yeah, would you like me to bring the machine? Like, I'll do the whole ward for you for free. Aren't you in the business of saving lives? He's like, I'd love to. I can't. I've got my protocol. I have to condition A, procedure A. Condition B, procedure B. If I stray from the protocol, my license doesn't get renewed by the board. That's how it runs. It's not
about the patients. They're not looking for patients. They're looking for customers. That's what
exactly right. They're not paid based on patient outcomes. They're paid based on how many prescriptions they write and how many surgeries they perform. And the protocols are written by the very pharmaceutical companies that are profiting from them. That's the problem. So I don't necessarily fault the doctors, maybe a little bit for their closed-mindedness. In some cases, though, more and more doctors are coming out too. What you were saying about you know, things like meditation becoming popular. I just went to a bioelectricity fair, and I think I was the only one there who was not an MD. And here's all these doctors talking about energy medicine. I'm like, wow, I'm impressed. Like, you guys are starting to take this stuff seriously. You know, there is another. You know, guys, turn off the news. Just don't watch it. The world is making progress. They're just not reporting it, but the world is changing. I remember when I started meditating 20 years ago on Venice Beach, like, I like to meditate with my eyes open. And you know, when I lived in California, I'm in Florida now, I used to love looking out at the water. 20 years ago, when I sat there on the sand in Venice Beach, like, people would walk around me. Like, they would stare at me, try to figure out if I was like one of those statue performance artists. You know, they would look in my eyes when they realized they were open, like, you know, all of this kind of stuff. 10 years ago, like, nobody looked at me funny anymore. They just kind of walked by and ignored me. It was starting, the yoga studios were opening up everywhere. It was starting to become fairly normal. The last time I meditated on Venice Beach before, you know, it was like my last look at the Pacific before I moved out east, like 6 people sat down and asked if they could join me. So that's how much the world has progressed. It is happening, you guys. Let's accelerate it. Let's have a little fun.
You know, your open eye meditation technique is really amazing. Can you describe that to the audience? Maybe, you know, they might want to try it at home or with a friend. So I've done this meditation technique many times with Andrei and another friend of ours, Ariane, and it is very powerful. I've seen past lives with them, with both of you, and really experienced a lot of incredible things with it. So I highly recommend it.
This meditation, I mean, it's literally, for those of you that follow sci-fi, if you know the series Doctor Who, like, this meditation is literally like your own personal TARDIS. You can go anywhere, anywhen, literally. It's like, some people describe it as the Merkaba, you know. Literally, you can go anywhere, anywhen. And it's, you connect with someone, you sit across from them, you connect with them left eye to left eye. Now, I do recommend somebody more experienced, like either myself or Apolla, somebody that's done it, because the first couple times, somebody's got to show you the frequency. You know, somebody's got to tune you up. It's sort of like music. Once you hear a song, second time through, you can hum it. But that first time, it really helps get you there faster if somebody's there with you who can get there pretty quick. But basically, you connect, you look at each other, you connect left eye to left eye, and you're not really staring. It's more like when you meditate with a candle flame. It just gives your pupil someplace to rest. But what you actually do is you take your vision and you go peripheral. At the same time, you can do both. So you've got the focused vision, and then you just go wide. And when you get comfortable holding both, things will go a little bit blurry. Just start breathing slowly and move energy up and down your spine, up and down your Jedi, just like the Jedi did. And after a few minutes, you will find yourself going somewhere else. And it's not really science fiction. It's actually pretty explainable. There's, you know, we know the third dimension is space, right? The three dimensions are height, length, width. The fourth dimension is time. And this is why I say you can go anywhere, anywhen. The fifth dimension is something, those of us who know, we call it either shifting or phasing. Okay? Solid reality is, I hate to spoil it for you guys, but solid reality is an illusion. Nothing solid is actually solid. Everything has its vibrational frequency. The reason things feel solid is because you are in phase with them. It's always there when you're there. You never see it not being there because you're not there to see it. So you are in phase. Fifth dimensional travel, very simply, is taking yourself out of phase so you can see through. There's a Renaissance painting, actually, that shows exactly that. It's amongst your slides. There's like a man leaning down on his knees, and he's kind of peeking behind the curtain of the stars. I don't know if you see that one.
Hold on, let me...
Here again, it's nothing new. This was found in a monastery or an abbey somewhere, and I think it's from the 1300s or the 1400s. It's like a monk. He's wearing a blue robe, and he's on his knees outside on a pasture.
Some of these images didn't load, so I had to pull them up to see them. Hold on a second.
It's not handy, don't. No big deal, but it's literally a tapestry from the 1400s, and it describes exactly that. You're not going into outer space. You're peeking to see what's behind outer space.
Oh, okay, I got it right here. Let's see here. Oops.
That's the one. That was it. Yep. So you see, he's not flying up and out into outer space. He's going through. That's phasing. That's fifth dimensional travel. Now, to us in the third dimension, imagine a one-dimensional world. It's got no height, it's got no width, it's got no length. To us, looking in from the 3D world, the 1D world would look like a single point. So if you can pop yourself out into the fifth dimension and then turn around and look back on our world, literally all of space-time is a single point. And you can come back in and reinsert yourself anywhere or anywhen you want. People are like, do you believe in past lives? It's like, well, no, I don't believe in them. I see them. I just take issue with the word past. Mine aren't over yet. I'm still experiencing them. With a little practice, you can be in more than one place at the same time. Also, you know, people are like, wow, Andrei, you're so smart. No, I'm cheating. I'm accessing the intelligence of several dozen people.
Is that by location?
Yeah.
I think over.
Absolutely. The only reason you think this is all there is is because you've spent a lifetime convincing yourself this is all there is. You've limited your field of vision. But just like there's some people that can hear dog whistles, the meditation techniques are basically a way of widening all your senses, hearing, vision, everything, so you can see beyond just this curtain that's right in front of your face. Exactly.
When I did the open eye meditation technique with Ariane one time, I swear I literally felt like time and space going around me, like swirling around me, and it was really intense. But
yeah, so you know, when I say TARDIS, I'm not exaggerating. Yeah.
With Andrei here, I actually saw his face change into an early hominid, and I believe it looks like a gray at one point. And yeah,
could be. I did a DNA test, and 8% of it came back unclassifiable.
8%.
8%.
Oh wow.
4% separate us from a turtle.
I got like 0.7%, but
oh, cool.
That's a large percentage. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Someone here says homosexuality is a good argument for past lives, girls being boys, vice versa. You know, I totally agree with that. I say that all the time. It's like, you know, if you, like me personally, you know, I'm really, you know, I'm really attracted by girls, and I know myself, like I've done past life regressions, and I really feel that I've been a guy in most of my life, so it makes sense, you know. And
well, same thing. I'm a sex therapist, and I work primarily with women, and they are completely comfortable around me. I've spent enough lifetimes as a woman that, like, I don't feel like the typical predatory man coming after them. Absolutely. Yeah. And you're absolutely right, Dodge. That's exactly where it comes from. Also, your attraction to women, besides them being fascinating, the Temple of Isis. You know, what do you think it is they did there? And before the sisters could see patients, they had to practice on each other. You've got memories of those lifetimes. There's not a single tantric healer that I've met in my years that was not at least a little bit bisexual.
You know, it was really interesting because a lot of that came up for me in recent months, probably around September. It was like different people I was interviewing were seeing this in me, like, you know, past lives and priesthoods, and it was just like a lot started coming up for me in like a very quick succession. It was like everything, like every book I would read, it would be bringing it up, and I wouldn't even like be looking for it. You know, I'd be in different interviews, and people would be like, "Yeah, you were this at this time," and then I texted you about it. I asked you what's the Sisterhood of the Rose, and you were like, "Oh, so you're remembering now."
You're finally remembering. Yeah. The Sisterhood of the Rose, they actually predate the Templars and the Jedi. They're the reason the Jedi and the Templars exist, I believe. Yeah, actually.
Can you explain to the audience and me a little more of what they? I mean, I think I have a general idea, but I don't know if I have a very complete idea of.
The Sisterhood of the Rose are literally the guardians of sexual energy. When people say to me, well, I'm really skeptical, I don't know if I've ever felt energy. Like, I would like to believe in it, but I don't know if I've ever felt it. First question I ask them, have you ever been sexually aroused? That's what energy feels like. That's exactly what energy feels like. Now, don't keep it in one place and circulate it throughout your whole body. That's exactly it. Women have always been the more sexual of the two. It's just that they've been suppressed and repressed and shamed into closing themselves off. Women are the source of the magic. And the Sisterhood of the Rose were literally like the keepers of this sacred knowledge. They not only taught women, they taught women how to heal men. Mary Magdalene, one of their prominent members. In the Da Vinci Code, they say that the Templar Order exists to protect the bloodline of Jesus Christ. 95% accurate. I mean, most of that film was accurate. The one thing they got wrong is we could care less about the bloodline of Jesus Christ. He was a very carefully vetted and chosen sperm donor. It's her bloodline we're interested in. It's always been about the women. She was not a prostitute, In fact, I spoke at length with a Bible scholar about this. I said, which passages of the Bible say she was a prostitute? He says, there are none. Doesn't exist. In fact, there's only 10
she was
passages.
A sacred sexuality priestess.
That's something the priests added later, who hated women and wanted to keep them out of the church. She was a sacred sexuality priestess. She actually took prostitutes off the street, healed them, and taught them how to use their abundant sexual energy for much more spiritual purposes. Absolutely. And she turned them into priestesses and healers. Yeah. That's the real story. The
and
Templars exist
like,
too.
Wait, what?
Yeah, surprise.
Blow-blowing minds.
Yeah. And the Templar Knights basically exist to protect, assist, and help awaken the sisters. That's been our whole function all along. Because it's really important work for the planet as well. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Jeanette. By using his sexual energy for something other than lust. Men are really good at generating energy, but it's the women that can focus it and direct it. You see, when the two work together, that's when magic happens. And by the way, for same-sex couples, everybody has masculine and feminine energy. So when I say men and women, I'm not excluding anybody. Because even in a same-sex couple, there will usually be somebody who's a little more masculine, a little more feminine. And usually, even in straight couples, this sometimes switches. Energy is a very fluid thing. Okay, so please understand, when we talk about men and women, we're talking in energetic terms.
So what exactly happens in sacred sexuality practices? Like what happened in these priesthoods? Like what exactly happened in the temples? Like what were the sort of practices that they did? Like, what kind of,
in a nutshell,
what they were working on.
In a nutshell, to arouse each other as much as possible, but not let it explode and go to waste. Keep arousing, go even higher, That's basically it. And once you get pretty good at holding that much energy, then you work with directing it. And that's when you can get into things like healing or influencing events, things like that. Yeah, it's all about, here again, the Jed pillar, the 7 steps. It's all about raising energy.
That's I've been talking on another show with Jean-Claude Beyond Mystic. I love talking with him about this area of studies, and he said that a lot of these women in the priesthoods, like men would be sent to them, like actually like men's wives would send that, or like they would send their men to these priestesses to help them, have them like kind of deprogram them after they would get back from war, and like
Absolutely.
be carrying all these like energies.
When a king or a general is returning back from war, right, before they go see their families, they would see these priestesses. Absolutely. So they don't bring that energy home. You see it in nature too. A lot of people don't know zebras and lions will drink from the same watering hole. Like they're not chasing each other all of the time, just when the lion is hungry. Usually they're friends. And the zebra knows. The zebra knows when it's safe to approach a lion or not, because they feel energy. You see it with horses. One person will freak a horse out, another person, the horse comes up and, starts licking them or petting them. They absolutely feel energy. So if a zebra is unlucky enough to get chased by a lion and actually survives, like manages to get away, it's very interesting. They don't right away run and rejoin their herd. You'll see them like jumping up and down and like snarling. What they're doing is they're shaking that energy off. They've just been chased. They just ran for their lives. They're not going to bring that energy back to the herd and back to their families. In Vedic India, it was the same thing. We take a shower every morning. We brush our teeth. If you don't do that for a couple of weeks and you go outside in public, people will be kind of like, ooh, you smell. In Vedic India, it was forbidden to go outside in public unless you've meditated first.
Wow.
Like, if people felt bad energy off of you, they'd be like, dude, like, go home and energy bathe. What are you doing bringing that out here in public? Seriously. Like, society used to be much more enlightened than we are today.
Wow.
But we're getting there. We're getting there.
Definitely. You mentioned using these sacred sexuality practices to kind of influence events or send energy to events. I think, that's very interesting, because obviously, there's kind of these darker, societies that are using this in kind of negative ways. But
Mm-hmm.
then people don't ever think about it being used in positive ways to influence events. And I think that's something that that would be really cool for people to work with a little more during this time.
Absolutely. And if anybody listening is wondering what Apolla is alluding to, go Google Bohemian Grove. And you'll see all of the world's leaders, including like 5, 6 presidents, wearing robes, dancing around a campfire in a big statue of an owl. Absolutely. Yeah. The powerful people of the world today are powerful because they understand these principles. But guess what? They're available to everybody. We can do this too.
Matthew Beinhart here says people had less stuff to distract them in the past. I think he's kind of referring to meditating and working with energetic practices. But
Mm-hmm.
I have people say that to me a lot. But it's so easy to set aside even like 20 minutes during your day to meditate,
Mm-hmm.
even in the morning. For me, I actually, when I'm getting ready in the morning, I'll do open eye meditation with myself in the mirror just while I'm like getting
Awesome.
ready to do my makeup in the morning, and it definitely is a great way to start the
the
day.
the best time is actually in the morning, like especially when you're laying in bed, those first few minutes where you're still in between worlds. Like, use that. Seriously, use that. Don't reach for your phone right away, which I hope is in airplane mode while you're sleeping, because otherwise those frequencies are playing havoc with your brain when it's supposed to be detoxing and rebuilding itself. So assuming you're sleeping with your phone in airplane mode, before you reach for it, just lay there in that state. Just lay in it and draw it out as long as you can. That's how you practice these skills. Something else I like to do before I open my eyes is sense the room. Can I see the room without opening my eyes? What sounds do I hear in the room? What sounds do I hear outside the room? What sounds do I hear outside the house? Like, keep practicing extending your reach. That's exactly how you build these sorts of skills. And to what you said, Matthew, about people having less to distract them, it's true. They didn't have TikTok and all that back then. But you know what? They had erupting volcanoes. They had saber-toothed tigers chasing them. They had rulers rounding them up to use for human sacrifices. Like, they had their own form of distraction. I think what it more is, I think we could cut through the noise. I think people don't place value on it, is what it is. They don't place enough value on it. I remember, like, I used to be a hedge fund manager in my past life. Well, in this life, but further back, like the complete opposite, like staring at a wall of monitors all day long. And when I told my now ex-wife, I'm going to quit all this and I'm going to go teach meditation, she's like, I don't want to be poor. That was her first reaction. She was like, I don't want to be poor, because people don't place value on this. And remember what Ariane said once? Like, she was talking about how people are like, why should I pay $20 every time I come to meditation? $20. What is $20? You pay like 3 times that for a concert these days. But remember her answer? She said, all I'm giving you is my life force. That's all. Yeah. What are we doing here? Is it valuable? It's just my life force. It's just my essence that I'm giving to you all of. And you're going to argue if that's worth $20 or not? Yeah, that's the problem. It's sort of like, yeah, teachers and meditation coaches. We're like the most underpaid members of society, but you could argue you're the most valuable. I remember I saw a statistic once that there was like some NBA player whose contract was $20 million a year. And they said, imagine we took 20 of the world's top scientists and we gave each one $1 million, funded their projects with $1 million. Where would the world be a year later? And I'm not going to knock sports. If you love sports, more power to you. But like, one basketball player, 20 of the world's greatest minds with $1 million each, going to work on solving.
I feel like a lot of the supposed greatest mind scientists are really corrupt and filthy rich already.
Well, right.
I guess it's choosing the right scientists.
The right science, the ones that actually need funding because their projects don't benefit a pharmaceutical company or a big multinational corporation. Right. Worthwhile projects that could actually give us cures instead of treatments or free energy. There's a reason they call it research, because we've already had this stuff.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of free energy devices that it's like as soon as someone makes them, then the blueprints get stolen by these black budget corporations.
Surprise, surprise. Well, even Tesla. He proved you can pull electricity out of the ground, just like the Egyptians. He proved you can transmit it through the air, just like the Egyptians. And they shut him down, and they went with Edison's inferior system instead, because that's what they realized. There's no place to stick the meter. We love you too, Jeanette. Thank you.
So we've been on for like an hour now. I think, you know, I definitely want to do another show with you like anytime. I'd love to have you as a regular guest on here, because I know there's like so many different topics we could go on about. Does anyone in the audience have questions for Andrei? You know, I haven't really been taking questions yet, so go ahead and write some questions in there if you can. I know there's a bit of a lag here. You know, I think the Mary Magdalene topic would be a good one for the next show.
Oh, we could do a whole show on that easily.
Definitely.
Easily.
I've actually done one on Jean-Claude's show already, so I definitely have a lot to say on that topic.
Mary Magdalene, up on through burning witches, up on through. There's a lot of things people don't know about. There were these things called Magdalene Laundries. You know, the Roaring Twenties, all the hotels popping up in New York. When it became unfashionable to burn women, and most of them weren't even witches. They were women who wouldn't obey their husbands.
Yeah.
They were too strong-willed, too sexually active. They didn't want to be somebody's little servant. That's most of the women that were burned at the stake. When it became kind of out of fashion to burn them at the stake, we stuck them into these laundry houses. Half of them died of lye poisoning. It's not
laundry houses.
Yeah, they're called Magdalene Laundries. It's not very much talked about. It's like a dirty little secret. The last ones in New York were closed in the 1940s. There was one in Ireland that was closed as late as the 1990s after they found a mass grave next to it. 1990s.
Wow, I've never heard of that before.
Exactly. And the one that was in New York, the last one that was shut down, still runs away a homeless shelter for runaway girls. It's still open to this day. They've got one of the highest suicide rates there is. Yeah.
No.
It's unfortunately, the divine feminine is still very much being suppressed today.
I feel it's coming back, though. I mean, obviously it was always there, but it's starting to. But it's almost like, to me, it's like, you know, obviously we're transitioning to the age of Aquarius. It's coming back. It's inevitable. Mm-hmm. But from what I've talked about with a lot of previous guests, it almost seems like, you know, obviously they're trying to like portray like, oh, the divine feminine is coming back in media these days, but then it almost seems like they try to hijack the idea of it and make it perverted or different than it, you know, truly is. Or, you know, they want to make it like what they want people to see it as, which is, what are your thoughts on that?
No, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what's been going on. You know, we had, you know, through the ages, we had religions repressing women and repressing sexuality. Then you have the revolution of the 60s, right? The sexual revolution. And then guess what? In the 70s and 80s, they give us porn. They're like, okay, you want sexuality? Here you go. Here's our version of it. Absolutely. It was a bait and switch. Matthew, to answer your question, have I ever heard of the monk Huyen? Briefly, I don't know a whole lot about him, but the reason he's called empty cloud, I believe, is exactly the effect that we were talking about, phasing. If he's able to walk between worlds and phase in and out of this reality, he would appear to others as an empty cloud, just an outline of himself. Apolla, you've seen the outlines.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like almost every time I drop into the open eye meditation, I instantly, it's like whoever's in front of me just goes black and they're just, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
or like
exactly.
Sometimes I see the line, or is it when you see the lines around people?
When you see the glow, that's auras, right? When you see the glow, but sometimes people just go transparent and disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see, like, the first time I saw that, it freaked me out, because it's, what's interesting is when Ariane runs her classes, she'll not tell you what, like, you might see, you know? She, like, lets you figure it out for yourself and then say it. So I just, like, I'm just looking at her, all of a sudden she just goes black and just disappears, and I was like, oh.
Well, it's a big that's a big part of it. I mean, if we told you you're going to see this, and the interesting thing is we've done this with hundreds, I think by now thousands of people, and everybody pretty much sees the same stuff in the same order. So it's not your imagination. But if we were to tell you first you're going to see this, then you're going to see this, then we're front loading. That's called the power of suggestion. There's a reason we don't like to prep you more than where to look and how to breathe, because we want no chance at all of front loading or suggestion. It's got to come from you in order to be authentic. People also ask us, what about using, certain substances like marijuana, for example? Like alcohol, I would say not. Drink on your birthday, drink on your anniversary. Don't drink during your meditation. That deadens the senses. We're trying to go for the opposite effect. We're trying to heighten the senses. Do I approve of weed while you're meditating? Absolutely. Buddha's always drawn with his eyes half closed and bloodshot. If you see the color depictions of them, they're always half closed, they're always bloodshot. But for your first few meditations, don't use anything at all, because you want to discount suggestion, you want to discount imagination, and you want to discount the influence of substances. I want people to experience this and know that it's real. And then you can play around with spicing it up. Renee Cruz, the power of suggestions. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Renee, I've done this inadvertently, but I've actually done this. I'm driving with my 2 dogs and my cat in the back of my car, and there's a police checkpoint, and I was just smoking with some friends. Like, I would never drink and drive, but I was back in town after a little while. We had our little circle, and I'm driving home, and there's a checkpoint, and I'm going, oh my gosh, please don't catch me, please don't catch me, please don't catch me. Everything's normal. And mean-looking cop, looks like an ex-Marine, walks up and, where are you heading tonight, sir? And then looks in, sees my dogs. He's like, oh, puppies. And this guy changed immediately. He's like, I love puppies. I love puppies so much. Oh, and you have a kitty too. Wow, puppies and kitties that are friends. Well, you have a good night now. Go ahead. It was literally like a these are not the droids you're looking for moment. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I've had some of those moments myself. It's interesting what you can do energetic. I actually had this one crazy circumstance that happened to me energetically that, it just proved to me, like, what you can do with yourself, with your energy when you're in really dangerous moments. And I don't know if I've told you this story before, but it was right when I had moved to LA like 7 years ago. And at the time I was kind of like living in a studio with these like rappers, like in a recording studio, basically.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Crash on the floor recording studio.
How did you sleep?
Just on the floor. I didn't really sleep. It was just music all the time. And it was a crazy time in my life. But so in the one night, like 3 a.m, we went to the gas station to get like blunt wraps or something, or it was like a 7-Eleven. So we're at a 7-Eleven, and the 2 people I was with went inside, and I was like just kind of like leaning against my friend's Beamer, smoking a cigar, because I used to do that back then. I don't anymore. But
you look good doing it too. I remember.
Yeah, I completely stopped that. But yeah, so I'm just like leaning on this Beamer, like smoking a cigar, and this like white van pulls up. It's like the old, like a rusty, like white van, total like kidnapper looking van,
Okay.
And so I'm standing there, and there's no one else outside, it's just me. And this van pulls up, and all these like really gangster looking dudes get out. There's like 8 of them. They're like, probably like Crips or Bloods, something like that. And they just come up to me and surround me. And they're just like, hey, girl, give me a hug. And they were just kind of like coming in around me. And like, I knew like they were going to do something, they were going to take me. And they were just like kind of like surrounding me. And I just like, it was really weird, but I just kind of like, it was like I just kind of like looked through them, and I just like pushed my energy like this. I just felt my energy go out like this. And I just started walking, and they just stepped back like this. Like they were like looking at each other like, what was that? And I walked through them, and I get inside, and then I get inside the 7-Eleven. I'm just like walking. They could have just, And I feel like if I would have screamed, they would have just grabbed me, covered my mouth, and threw me in the van. But I didn't
Oh, they
react.
prey on fear. You would have given them exactly what they were
Yeah.
after. Absolutely.
Instead of reacting, I just, and it is so weird because it was like not even like I didn't even think this wasn't. Wasn't even thinking. It was just like what like energetically felt right to me in the moment. I just tapped into it. I just felt my energy go, whoo, and they just step back and they're just like. And I go inside, and as soon as I get inside, I like ran to grab my friends. And I turn around, and they all got in the van and peeled out. Like as soon as I had walked through the door, so they were obviously there to they were going to take me and probably bang me in an alley or something like that. So
nice. Glad you got out okay, but that's exactly what you do. Little tip for the women that are watching this, because I know it's particularly tough when you're going out in public, you're going out to a club and a bar, right? It's like flies to light, right? Imagine a shimmering golden or silver egg around you. And a good way to energize it is when you breathe in, just pull energy in from the air around you. And when you breathe out into this egg. Make it like stronger and more visible to you, if you will, more tangible. And once you can kind of visualize this egg of light around you, take it and spin it. That's your personal shield. And you'll see some idiot walking up to you and then something distracts him and he'll walk away. They literally, as this thing is spinning, as this energy shield is spinning, they'll like ricochet off of it. It works. This is how I get my good-looking friends to be left alone when they're trying to have fun. You can absolutely attract or repel people once you learn to more consciously work with your energy.
Definitely. So I think I'm going to get ready to wrap this up here. Do you have any final words you want to say to the audience? Anything you would like for them to take away from this?
I'll leave it with Shakespeare. There are more things in heaven and earth that are dreamt up in your philosophy. I encourage you, if we've piqued your interest tonight, get on the internet, start Googling, get some good books, find a teacher. Like, this is really, really fascinating stuff. I've been studying it for over 20 years, and I'm just getting more interested in it. So just start learning this stuff, start practicing this stuff. The world needs you.
And where can they find you if they would like to reach out to you, or is there any like websites or anything? I know I put a lot of websites in the description.
Right, they're in the description if anybody wants to. If you want to contact me directly, Andrei Knight Awakening. That's my Instagram. You can direct message me there, and it's Andrei Knight Awakening. That's how you find me on Instagram. My websites they're being built, so please excuse the way they look right now, but you can certainly sign up for the mailing list there. JediAwakening.com if you're interested in learning energy work and some of these ancient Jedi arts. If you're more interested in the Tantra side, it's tantricawakening.net. Not .com, but .net. Sign up for either or both, whatever your interest level is, and when the websites are done and up, ready to go, we'll shoot you an email. When I'm doing online trainings, we'll certainly shoot you an email. That's the best way to plug in. And if you're on Clubhouse, find me on there. Follow me. I talk on Clubhouse all the time about this kind of stuff.
Well, thanks, Andrei, so much for being here. I really enjoyed having you on. And to the audience out here, definitely. And we're definitely going to have to do more soon. Definitely.
One of us is flying to one coast or the other, Apolla. It's been too long. I miss you.
Yeah, definitely. I might be going to Florida soon. Who knows? But if not, you got to come out here. And also, I just posted some donation links in the comments because YouTube is kind of taking my money here. So please feel free to do that because I have some studio that I'm working on here in LA, and I need to get some more equipment for it before I can get back to doing my show from there. Also, I have some amazing art on my site. These are orgonite necklaces. I talked in the beginning of the show, so I won't talk about them again now. But the keys have moldavite in them. Yes, moldavite and crushed moldavite. Also,
for anybody that doesn't know, moldavite comes from outer space.
Yeah. Also, I have these really sweet orgonite pyramids. Only a few of those left. Orgonite brass knuckles. And my new spirit collection is coming out. It will be out by the end of this weekend, most likely. But I also have 2 more spears left up here. They're kind of revamped ones from that I've kind of had around for a while. So
They look better and better. Like every time you post like your latest batch, like they're amazing.
Thank you so much. You've been seeing me do them for a long time. You saw what they were like at the very beginning.
I've seen the evolution. I want to touch on something Dodge just said. This is actually very important. Dodge the Badger is saying visualization is so powerful. It definitely is, Dodge, but here's the thing. It's actually not the visualization. Okay, like if you're trying to create something in your life, I want a bigger house. Okay, well, why? What are you going to do in the house once you have it? Okay, we call it going one past if you're trying to manifest. Well, there's no trying, do or do not, right? That's what Yoda says.
Yeah.
There is no try. When you are manifesting, it's not about the house, it's what you're going to do in the house when you have it. And then here's the key. How does that make you feel? It's the feeling, okay? The job of the visualization is to evoke a feeling in you. And if what you're visualizing doesn't create a feeling, pick bigger goals. You're limiting yourself too much. It's about the feeling. And it's even right in the Bible. They say that Jesus said, when your intention and your emotion are aligned, you say to the mountain, move, and the mountain will move. When your intention and emotion are aligned. So the purpose of the visualization, you don't stop there. It's to generate the feeling. The feeling is how you interact with the Force.
Amazing. So I'm just going to end the show with those amazing words there. And also next Thursday is my next show. Thursday at 5 p.m. I will be interviewing Brooks Agnew from American Free Radio about,
cool.
You know Brooks. You know Brooks?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll be interviewing him about asteroid mining. So that's going to be a very interesting conversation. So I hope you can all tune in for that. And until next time on Apollo's Odyssey, over and out.